This is Samsak, and in this video we are looking at the law of supply and demand. So what is the law of supply and demand? Now, the law of supply and demand is a key economic theory that demonstrates the interaction between the buyers and sellers of a resource. Now, the fundamentals of supply and demand is that low supply and high demand will increase prices, whereas high supply and low demand will decrease prices. Now, this means that supply and demand should reach an equilibrium where the amount of goods supplied is the same as the amount demanded. Now, an example of supply and demand in action would be that if there was a drought and therefore there were very few avocados available. Now, this would mean that demand for avocado was much greater than the supply, and this would consequently increase the price of avocados. On the other hand, say that a political dispute leads to countries maximizing their oil production. Now, this may mean that the supply is much greater than the demand. Now, this means that the prices of oil will become significantly lower so that the oil can be sold. So first of all, we'll explain demand in more depth, as demand graphs are drawn from the perspective of a consumer, and in general, as the price increases, the demand for the product will usually decrease. Now, in basic economic analysis, all factors except for the price of a commodity are often held constant. So this means that the analysis involves examining the relationship between various price levels and the maximum quantity that would be purchased by consumers at this price. Now, there are also other factors though, including price, which will shift the demand curve. Now, these include things like income. Now, as consumer income goes up, demand for expensive goods will increase, whilst demand for some inferior goods may decline. There's also tastes. Now, consumer tastes are constantly changing, and the rapid increase in popularity will also increase demand, whereas some things may also go out of fashion. And there's also expectation. So consumers' expectation about the future will greatly impact their buying habits because they may be concerned about the direction of the economy and may not buy a certain product for that reason. Now, there are two main types of demand. You have elastic demand and inelastic demand. Price elasticity measures the responsiveness of demand after a change in the product's price, and it will be influenced by the availability of substitutes, the degree of necessity of a product, and brand loyalty. Now, the formula for calculating price elasticity is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Now, if the coefficient of price elasticity is under 1, then demand is said to be price inelastic, and that means it's unresponsive to change in price. For example, necessities like food and petrol may be fairly unresponsive because people have to buy them whatever the price. Now, if the coefficient is over 1, then demand is said to be price elastic, so highly responsive to a change in price. For example, products like consumer durables will be highly sensitive to price increases, and demand will fall drastically in accordance with any price increase. Now we're looking at explaining supply, as the supply curve functions in a similar fashion, but it considers the relationship between the supply of an item and its price. Now, in this respect, when the price of a product increases, producers are willing to manufacture more of a product because there can be greater profits. Likewise, falling prices may reduce production because the producers may not be able to cover their input costs. So this all means that you have to find an equilibrium, as consumers typically look for the lowest prices, whilst producers are encouraged to increase outputs at only higher costs. So this means that a proper balance and equilibrium must be achieved for demand to be the same level as supply. Now, when supply and demand are out of equilibrium, it's detrimental to the economy as a whole, and this is known as the deadweight loss. So thanks for watching. If you click on my website link in the description, there is a link which will give you a free share of up to £100 if you follow the instructions. But thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye.